Hey everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's time for round 2 of Jenelle Evans Eason's I Have Something to Say series that she is posting on her YouTube channel. Now, her first video, which outlined a lot of the everything leading up to her kids being taken away, was at first growing rather slow in terms of the views and now has reached over 370,000 views. So she has released her second video, and it's on the heels of the premiere of Teen Mom, which again, I do think Jenelle is doing this to steal the thunder, thus proving that she would still love to be on MTV, even though she spent the last episode of this first episode talking about how terrible MTV was to her family. In this episode, she's talking all about her case. Now, the interesting thing in this one is that she kind of rewrites history here. And I don't mean like rewrites history. It just seems like they have a specific agenda that they're pushing with this story. And that is that there was literally zero basis for the kids being removed, and that everyone at the center that was dealing with this, so the courts and CPS, were working against them in some sort of weird conspiracy to separate them, and everyone had it wrong but her and David. And she even at one point sort of minimizes the reasons for why they were removed. Now, she
very hard dealing with everything we had to deal with, especially at the beginning of court. So at the beginning of the CPS case, within the first 2 weeks, month, we had a judge named Judge Fairley. Judge Fairley was the judge who signed the order, the judgment order, on May 13th, 2019 to have my children taken away. He did not care. I had a lawyer at the time. He still signed it. He signed the order based off of allegations saying David has a bad temper. So I don't even understand why I didn't get a chance to speak up myself before they just ripped my kids out of my home. That's insane.
So I blurred out the part where she shared the order, but I'll show you a cropped out one because she included her address and like all of Ensley's like date of birth and very like personally identifying information, which I don't know if she even considered that when she posted that on her website or on her video. But the order doesn't say that it has anything to do with anger. In fact, it says that there is evidence of injury to the child or SA. Now, it's not clear which one it is, and that's just a standard check mark, but that box was checked, along with another one that was checked that said that there was inadequate supervision of the children, which then resulted in an injury, which could be in relation to the dog snapping at Ensley and that nip on her face. And David was not supervising her during that time and instead was just filming her. So perhaps that was where it came from. It says absolutely nothing about anger, and I find this to be incredibly disingenuous and misleading by Jenelle. There were a lot of components of this second episode that felt incredibly disjointed, where half stories were happening and then it was interlaced with home footage of what she was dealing with at the time, discussing, the way that people were reacting to the stories online, discussing people talking about things that they knew nothing about, and her having a gag order, like in this clip.
People are complete assholes, and they're just like, oh, you miss your kids? This is what you deserve. I don't deserve this. I know what kind of mom I am, and I'm a damn good mom. I do everything every day for my kids.
But we knew for these kids we had to be strong. I made sure I wanted to give the judge a good impression, so I would show up on time every day. Nathan would be late every day to court, and everyone started making jokes about it towards the end of court, like, oh yeah, he's late, your honor, he always is late. Like, I mean, it was ridiculous because no one even took it seriously but me and David. Like, it was a big joke to everybody. And then the public was freaking the public was just insane. They would not let anything go. They would call CPS every day for updates. CPS would give them updates to random people that didn't even live in my state, which is North Carolina.
So she makes a lot of allegations here, and there's not a lot of evidence. And that's the problem here, is because I don't know that this is in truth. I don't know that people were actually calling and they were releasing information, because that's not standard. That's actually really not standard at all. That's actually illegal. And I can't imagine them doing anything like this. She also goes on to claim that the woman at CPS was the person that was actually leaking stories to the media based on a quote that was taken from a Radar Online article, as though that was evidence that this person was saying
Carolina.
that. Now,
Every time Susan went to testify, she would say, it's a crying shame what these kids, the situation they're in. It's a crying shame if they would go home. It's a crying shame how upset these kids are. A source told the tabloids it would be a crying shame if the kids went back to their house.
So she makes a lot of allegations here, and there's not a lot of evidence. And that's the problem here, is because I don't know that this is in truth. I don't know that people were actually calling and they were releasing information, because that's not standard. That's actually really not standard at all. That's actually illegal. And I can't imagine them doing anything like this. She also goes on to claim that the woman at CPS was the person that was actually leaking stories to the media based on a quote that was taken from a Radar Online article, as though that was evidence that this person was saying that. Now, she uses this as, she says, oh, she would say this in court, and then she shows a image of the Radar Online article with the person saying that same thing. So we're just supposed to trust Jenelle that the CPS worker said this, and then this is what was said on Radar Online. Now, Barbara Evans shows up again in this episode, and this is by far the one part of this that makes zero sense to me. Because if you remember, Barbara was very outspoken in 2019 about not wanting the kids to be returned home. So here's what she had to say, and then I want to show you what she actually said in 2019, because it doesn't match at all.
Thing that was going on. I mean, you know, they took the kids away. They took Ensley away, gave her to me. They took Kaiser away, gave her to the other paternal grandmother, and we really had no reasoning behind this. And they said, you know, there was no drugs found, there was no alcohol found, there was nothing was found, nothing. They weren't, you know, there was no domestic, there was nothing. You know, the only thing they had on them was David has an anger issue. But, I mean, the kids weren't hurt, the kids didn't have bruises. It was so strange. And it was, you know, a very stressful time for us all. You know, I had Jace, I had Ensley. You know, Ensley, I had to get up early in the morning so I could drop her off at daycare. I had to find a daycare for her to go. And then I had to drop her off at daycare. I had to bring Jace to school. And then after bringing Jace to school, I have to drive an hour to court. Then I'd have to leave court early to pick up all the kids before 6. It was insane. And it was all for nothing. All for nothing. Nothing. But, you know, they just had...
So she says it's like this giant waste of time. They don't find anything. There's no alcohol. There's no DRUGSs. There's no DV. The kids have no bruises. There's nothing wrong. They don't really tell us what happens. So it was just all for nothing. And I was so inconvenienced because I had to drive Ensley here and do this with Jason. She even talked at one point that I didn't show you about being in court and how terrible it was. And I can imagine it was very stressful. She didn't let Jace even testify. She complained that it cost $11,000. I don't know necessarily why Jace was involved, because he wasn't an actual part of this case. But then she also talked about how it was all for nothing because they found nothing. But then that doesn't match at all what she said afterwards, because once everything comes out, she talks immediately to E! News and says, the Columbus County judge did a great injustice to these children. Jace was very upset and didn't want to go, so I didn't send him back. So she's here saying it was all for nothing, but then after the order, she's saying Jace doesn't want to go back and I can't believe this happened. And then she also told Radar Online that it was an injustice to the children and we're sick to our stomachs. And then she continued that David had gone back. So now they're going to go back with the crazed guy. He's back to his mean SHIT. She said that David had faked nice being at Kaiser's birthday party and that it was all a setup. And the minute it was dismissed, their whole true colors came out. And she said, I'm going to fight for these children. Like, she was devastated that they were going back to David. I'm going to fight for these children. But here she's like, I don't understand why I just spent $11,000. They didn't find anything. What is it, Barb? They didn't find anything, or are you fighting for these kids? What's going on here? I don't get it. Why are we rewriting history? Did something happen along the way where you realized that they were set up, or are you just trying to mend fences and placate Jenelle? Because I kind of feel like that's what's happening. Then she goes on to talk about how Nathan's in love with Jenelle, which is sort of out of place and weird. Watch this.
Courtroom. Outside the courtroom in the hallway. So, I was sitting with Nathan, because I used to not like Nathan, but as the years go by, I'm just friendly with him. I think he's kind of comical in a way, because he's so out there sometimes. So, he's talking to me, and then he's telling me, he said, oh, look, he said, I still love Jenelle. I'll always love Jenelle. She's the mother of my child. And then he's even showing me pictures in his wallet, no, his phone, I guess it was, that are pictures of Jenelle, my God, when they're dating. And she was like, oh my God, she was only so young at that time. I guess how old she was, I don't know, like 19 maybe. And she was all buffed out, This is when Nathan met her, and he used to make her do weight training and everything. And I said, you still got that picture of Jenelle? And he said, yes.
So this story about Nathan still being in love with Jenelle is one that Jenelle talks about still. She's insinuated, implied, and indirectly even directly called him out on Twitter, saying that he still loves her. So I don't know where this is even a part of it. Is it that he loves her and so he's doing this to hurt her? That was sort of the implication, or the implication that Barb was giving to me about this. Now, the weird part here is that David then shows up and he starts talking about Maryssa. And there was a lot of news at the time about Maryssa not wanting to talk to him, how the visits were not going well. And he blames CPS for planting things in his daughter's mind. And that's the reason why his daughter doesn't want to talk to him. And because of them telling her she doesn't have to talk to him, therefore it was their fault that Maryssa didn't want to interact with him, not because of his behavior. Listen to this.
And then when CPS actually did let us visit with the kids at the CPS office, then Maryssa acted all shy, shut down. She didn't want to talk. And I realized after the first 2 visits that these ladies are telling her, you don't have to talk to him. If you don't talk to him, then everything will be okay. And if you want to just leave, you can leave. If he's going to make you upset, then don't talk. And, you can't tell a kid stuff like that. They need to be able to get their actual feelings out without someone trying to persuade them or ask them certain questions to get a certain answer. You can go fishing for answers and get them sometimes, especially with children. They just want to make you happy. They want to make the person who's asking them questions satisfied with the answer.
What he's describing there, to me, sounds more like Maryssa was probably having anxiety, maybe about her dad, maybe about what was going on, and she was not feeling good about talking to him. And so perhaps they were just telling her, hey, you don't have to talk to him if you're feeling upset. I mean, honestly, if that's going to alleviate her and make her feel better, she might have been very scared at that point in time. That doesn't sound bad to me. That sounds more like trying to calm the child. But instead, he's accusing them of trying to interfere with his relationship with them. But there was reports of them having explosive interactions and him blowing her off and not liking that she wouldn't talk to him. And that probably made her confused. I don't understand why he's doing this. And then he accuses them of basically planting ideas that they were bad parents and then goes after the woman's mental health. Watch this.
I want to play my toy. Then Susan would literally look at us and smirk and laugh and be like, ha ha, and write something down on her paper. Like, she's just trying to push buttons. Just trying to make us feel like we're bad parents. I mean, that's like some emotional abuse. What she's been through in her life to get her where she's at now. And I'm not sure how she got the job she has with the mentality, her mental instabilities. I don't understand how people are able to get those types of jobs. Like, there needs to be a proper vetting before you can be a social worker that takes away people's children.
There was a bunch of other home videos of her crying and talking about how fans were relentlessly saying she was picking her husband over her kids, and that's impossible because she's married, so how do you pick your man over your kids? That's not logical. You can still be married and pick your husband over your kids. Not a logical argument at all. And all I'm seeing here are two people, and three, that are just not taking any accountability for what happened. What happened was serious. We cannot discount what David did to Nugget. And the denials of any sort of lack of DV by Barb, by David, and by Jenelle is terrible, because we know it's happened. There is a 911 call of Jenelle crying. She told me that he slammed her to the ground and she had a dislocated shoulder bone that might need surgery. Like, how do you go from nothing happened to multiple ROs that allege DV and being afraid for your kids? Not to mention, only in June, there was the incident with the whipping of the gun on her friend, and somehow we're led to believe that everything's totally normal in their house. I doubt it. What she needs is to stop playing this victim, take some responsibility for what's happened, and stop making this about what happened to her. What should matter is what happened to the kids and what the kids experienced. It's great. Yay, you're back with your husband. But in the past year since you've been back with him, you've left him twice. You've taken out 2 ROs against him. You've moved to Tennessee. You left him in the spring and went back after a few days. It's not a healthy place for kids to be around. And Barb, by being a part of this, is only playing enabler to Jenelle. And that's what she does best. She either is yelling at Jenelle or enabling Jenelle. And right now I feel like she's enabling Jenelle because she wants to have a probably normal relationship without any hostility. And so she'll say anything at this point. That's my opinion. Anyways, you can watch the full video on Jenelle's channel. She is obviously getting lots of views on these. You can tell me what your thoughts are. If you watched it, if you didn't watch it, are you feeling like how I felt? Did I get it wrong? Did I get it right? Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Bye, guys.